I feel a bit hyperactive today, so sorry if that comes across and I'm coming on too strong, but you know, sometimes we just have to get the energy out of us. So today I'm getting the energy out by filming this video. So thanks for being here, everyone. So let's set the scene for today's video, shall we? So in addition to loving books and loving YouTube videos, both watching and making them, I also love lists. And so I remembered how much I loved lists, right? And then I remembered that back quite a few years ago, I had been tagged in like a challenge on Facebook to make a list of my top 10 favorite books at that time. And I made this list and I posted it to my Facebook. And so, you know, I went onto Facebook, I did a little searchy search with my own name and then books after it. And lo and behold, there was the list, clear as day. And I read through it and I was like, this is just gas, right? This is gas and this is such a good video idea. I'm gonna react to my top 10 favorite books from that time and decide whether or not they're still a favorite. I hope you're just as excited as I am because this is a great idea, I have to say. So without further ado, we're gonna get into it. It turns out that this list was from 2014, so that's the time period that we're dealing with here. It's 6 years since I made that list. So number 1 on that list was the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. Now, we're starting with a bit of a controversial one. I will admit that. Oh, whew, it's getting hot. It's getting hot in here. Okay, so Harry Potter is obviously extremely well known, but J.K. Rowling has come under a bit of fire in the last few years for her extremely questionable stances and opinions on transgender folk and what it means to be a woman. And quite understandably, her opinions have kind of ruined the Harry Potter series for a lot of people who used to love it. My position on it is that I still absolutely love Harry Potter as a series. I have issues with J.K. Rowling. The fact of the matter is that I've loved Harry Potter since I read it and it is still going to be a favourite for me. Okay, moving on to hopefully a less controversial one. We have number 2 on the list, which is The Silver Linings Playbook by Matthew Quick, which I have here. In terms of the content of this book, I don't actually remember the detail of it very well. What I do remember of it is it was simultaneously very funny and very touching on the topics of mental health and trying to do things that make you happy with people that make you happy. And so that's the general kind of, you know, image that I have of this in my mind, but I don't have very distinct memories of the plot. And the memories I do have kind of come from the movie. So the book hasn't had that much of a lasting impact on me, I would say. So I would not consider it a favourite anymore. Okay, so the next book is unfortunately another controversial one, and this list is really showing its age, which is actually really interesting because it shows how, you know, culture changes over time and how discussion moves things along. The book that I'm talking about is The Help by Catherine Stockett. Now, when I read this book, I absolutely loved it, but I know that a lot of criticism has come out about The Help. Some of the criticism is that it kind of has this white savior narrative where it follows this young white woman as she writes a book about black maids in America in the 1960s, and it really positions her as like the savior of these black women instead of allowing the black women to tell the story themselves. And I do understand that criticism. I think it's a very valid criticism. And even Viola Davis, who played one of the main characters in the movie, has said that she does regret participating in the movie because it centers white people too much. And I do think that's very valid. However, as I was kind of saying with Harry Potter, it doesn't take away from the fact that this book did actually teach me a lot. And as someone who isn't American, it gave me an insight that I did need, and it allowed me to actually, you know, find a way into those themes and those issues and discussions, even if itself it is kind of problematic. And so I think it still has worth, even though it has issues. In terms of whether it's still a favourite of mine, I still think of it very fondly, but if someone was to ask me like a week ago what my favourite books were, I don't think this book would have come to mind. So in that sense, I don't think it's still a favourite. But it's certainly an interesting one. And it's ripe for discussion. So okay, book number 4 is Animal Farm by George Orwell. Obviously, Animal Farm is an extremely well-known book, and I'm not really going to go into what it's about because I think most of us know what it's about. But this is a book that I would be so interested to reread because I think George Orwell really just like got into the core of like humans' relationship with power and greed, and how it kind of changes people, right? The themes are just so apt. Like, they were apt when he wrote it, they were apt when I read it, and they will still be relevant into the future. And I think that is such a powerful thing to have done in his piece of work. Similarly with The Help, I'm not sure if I would have thought of it if someone asked me what my favourite books were, just because it's been so long since I read it and I haven't reread it since. But it's certainly one of the really good books that I've read, you know? So I would consider it to be close to a favourite, if not a favourite. Okay, next on the list, we're at number 5, we're getting there, we're halfway through, is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This is 100% still a favourite book. Like 100%, I don't even have to think about this. This book is set during the tumultuous history of Afghanistan, including the time when the Taliban were reigning. So it is so harrowing sometimes, this book, to read about, you know, the kind of the hardships that these characters and that this nation were facing. But the biggest thing that I remember about this book is the relationships, and specifically the female relationships between the two kind of matriarchs of this family. And oh my god, this book moved me so much. I cried at the end of this book, and once I finished it, I just knew 100% that it was a new favourite of mine. So she's still a favourite. The next book on the list then is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness and Siobhan Dowd. This book is a really haunting little tale about a young boy. I can't actually remember what age he was, but he was fairly young, and it's about his dreams and how his dreams are visited by a monster who is kind of the manifestation of his fears and his emotions about his mother being sick. Oh, it's just very moving and very poignant, I would say. Whether it's still a favourite, I don't actually think so. I think it's a very important book to me, but I don't think I would count it as a favourite anymore. Okay, we're flying through. The next book is our first young adult contemporary book on this list, which is exciting because I used to read a lot of these. It's Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. Oh, I loved this book. I remember absolutely adoring just the experience of reading it. So this book is as I say, it's a young adult contemporary novel, and it's a love story, it's a romance between these two characters, Eleanor and Park. But what's interesting about this is, like, plot aside, I just loved the experience of reading it so much. Like, I distinctly remember like waking up early before school so I could squeeze in like reading some of this book, and I remember being so annoyed that I then had to like go and spend the whole day in class instead of reading this book. And I think a few times I actually took it into classes and I was like trying to read it covertly under the table. Like, who was she? I was such a rebel. Reading a book in school, oh my god. But yeah, no, I really liked this. It's definitely not a favourite anymore, but I'm really happy for past me that it was a favourite for her then, because that's lovely. Oh my god. So the next book, here we go, boys. This is the anchor of this video, right? Like, this is the book that I have said for years is my favourite book of all time. It's time for the big reveal. What is the book? The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. Oh my god! god. I doubt anyone needs to be told what this book is about because it was literally like a global phenomenon and bestseller and was made into a movie and everything like that. But if you don't know what it's about, it's set during World War II and it follows a young girl and her kind of relationship with her family as the war is going on, and her relationship with a young boy who is a Jew. And it's all told from the perspective of death. And I think that one of the big reasons why I loved it so much was that it was probably one of the first kind of adult fiction books I read. And I think I was just really proud of that fact, as well as actually loving the book itself. So it was like a double whammy with this one, you know, and that's why it affected me so much. The thing about it, right, is that I do actually really want to reread this book. I'm just nervous because I love it so much and cherish it so much that if I don't like it as much, I'll be really sad. But I would really like to reread it and see what I think of it now. So I might make that a little project for myself to try and reread The Book Thief. Hashtag reread The Book Thief 2020. Am I right, guys? Am I right? But yeah, this is 100% still a favourite. I don't even have to think about it. It's still a favourite. I love you. Moving on. The next one is very interesting, I have to say. And it is I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. That's right. It's the same author of The Book Thief. I can almost guarantee that the only reason I included this book on this list way back in 2014 was that I wanted to show that, you know, although I loved The Book Thief massively, I didn't just love it because it was like a mainstream popular book, you know. I loved it just because I loved this author, right? And I'll show you because I've read another book by this author. I can honestly guarantee that that's the only reason this book made it onto this list, because when I read it, I definitely enjoyed it, but I didn't finish it thinking that's a favourite, you know. So I think it's pretty funny that it's on this list. Okay, and with that we have reached the last book on the list, ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, and that book is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This one's also a really funny one to me because I think it's pretty similar to the situation with I Am the Messenger, in that it wasn't really a favourite at the time, but I included it on this list for kind of other reasons. And those other reasons are that I was a massive Florence and the Machine stan, and at this time, or around this time anyways, they were releasing a song for the movie adaptation of The Great Gatsby. So I was just kind of like all on board with that and read it because the adaptation was coming out and Florence had a song in it. Honestly, I remember really liking it, but also being very confused by it, and I don't think I really understood it. And when I finished it, I didn't feel like this is definitely a favourite book. But I think I just put it on this list so that I could be like, I love Florence. And so with that, the video is over. My condolences to you. I hope you're not finding this too hard. This was a really fun video. It's really fun to go down memory lane, bit of nostalgia, you know. Thank you for watching yet again. Bye. I really need to get better at like ending these videos.